Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and what you know about the Inhumans, huh? What you know about them? Listen, you're about to learn a little bit something about them, about their original origin. Now, some of this origin has changed, but a little bit of retcon here and there. But for the most part, it's all pretty, assured. It's set in stone. A couple things been added and a couple of tweaks, but this is the solidity of it. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over Thor issues number 146 to approximately 152. The last 3 issues there are going to be completely glossed over. So for the most part, just Thor number 146 to 149. In the back of those issues, there was a couple of extra stories. Now, you could just go ahead and grab those particular issues in and of themselves. Those are older stories, and nothing particular of interest happens in some of the earlier ones, but you will have there's a Hela appearance, there's an Ulik appearance, and there's what's the other one? Oh, the Destroyer armor, the Enchanted Destroyer armor. Usually anytime Hela is involved, the Destroyer armor is going to be there. It's not guaranteed, but it's a pretty good bet. It's a safe bet. In the meantime, these are the two big deals, saying that for the most part happened there. And while it's not their first appearances, they are usually more expensive appearances. The only one that will be very difficult to get, I think, that's in any good shape, but we can actually read the darn thing, is going to be issue number 148. The reason for that is it's the first appearance of the Wrecker, the guy with the big crowbar. Eventually he would form the Wrecking Crew. Yeah, that guy, Dirk. Anyway, so those could be kind of expensive. So you can either check them out on Marvel Unlimited, the Marvel app. You could whatever. Those are the two main ways to find them. But another way you could find them, and this is a much less expensive manner. Plus, you'll find a bunch of other cool like Spider-Man stories and things like that. Amazing. The story in the back of issue number 146 of Thor can be found in Amazing Adventures issue number 10. And then the stories in the back of Thor number 147 through 152 can be found in Marvel Tales issue number 130 or 123. Marvel Tales issue number 123 through issue number 128. So all of these stories that I'm about to mention can be found in those locations. So I put that at the beginning of this video, nice and easy to find, refer to. We're good. Let's get to the freaking story, all right? And guys, just on the same day today, I dropped Black Bolt, explained in a minute, that completes the basics of the Inhuman royal family. I may do something on other Inhumans, like some of the new humans at one point, but right now, I've got the bulk of the major 6 Inhumans. So there's that, plus Lockjaw. Okay, so check it. Let's get started with this. Issue number 146 of Thor. In the backup story, we have the last days of the dinosaur and men. You know what I'm saying? Now, the dinosaurs and the men never crossed in real life. We know that. But this is just what they're saying there. They do have a couple little pictures there. Eventually, I guess, Jack Kirby was a lot more sciencey than Stan Lee ever was. So, yeah. He used to read science fiction. That's how he did that. But anyway... And he would read a bunch of science journals. He loved stuff like that. I don't know how the heck the guy found the time, but whatever, man. So that's the deal. That would be finished there. Also, issue number 40, issue number 46 of the Fantastic Four, and also issues number 56 and 57, I think, 57, 58. Those also confirmed that there were dinosaurs back then, but I believe that was fixed for the most part. I wrote it down. Issue number 64 and 65. So issue 46, issue 64 and 65 of the Fantastic Four. Nice. Just next page. Anyway, so this is around the time, realistically, and we see this in the next issue. This is approximately the time of when the woolly mammoths still existed. When they were still, of course, down south for the most part in the southern European hemispheres, but they this was right before they got extinct so right before the last ice age. So that's around the time that this is. There are a bunch of men hanging around and they're shooting bows and arrows at each other. They just discovered fire not too long ago, stuff like that. But they said one group defied the slow evolution because evolution is supposed to be slow. But they defied it, and it was sped up rapidly for them. And they had advanced technology, cities, and when I say cities, I'm talking about like freaking, it looked like something out of the Federation, Star Trek Federation. They even had the stun pistols, you know what I'm saying? They could stun saber-toothed tigers who were attacking them and stuff like that. Anyway, at this point, they discovered the mysteries of Terrigen Mist. Now, they had their king, Randak, at the time. He's considered the first of the Inhumans. All right? There was the race beforehand, but they were still technically considered humans. Now, much, much, much later on, not in this story, you find out that 25% of their genes were actually Kree genes. So they were injected with these. It wasn't even like a mating ritual kind of thing. No, they had 25% recessive Kree genes inside of their human bodies. They were originally humans. This made them peak physical condition, legitimately, like, tougher than Captain America. As good of fighters as him? No, you have to train forever to be as good a fighter as freaking Captain America. You know what I'm saying? But they did have slightly more strength than Captain America. They had slightly more endurance than Captain America. They actually surpass him and go into full-fledged superhuman levels of strength, speed, durability, toughness, whatever, is about the same thing. All that good stuff. So they were beyond peak level human being. And they were, on average, smarter, too, because they were gifted with this incredible technology. So you have these incredible human beings already, and they evolved very quickly. Very quickly. They had gigantic Star Trek-like civilization on their island. They didn't actually call it New Adelan at the time, but retcon, it was called Adelan. So all the other humans were afraid of them. They were trying to attack them with their bow and arrows, anything they didn't understand. They were primitives, you know what I'm saying? They just became what we know of today as Homo sapiens from Cro-Magnon and all that these different can we call them races? I guess we could actually call those races, the different races that were around. So, yeah, they became the dominant that were out there. The Inhumans were very small in number, but that's their deal. So they discovered Terrigen Mist, and they feared releasing it onto the world because they were thinking, well, we could just release this into the world and see who else amongst us is out there, and all of us would wind up becoming super evolved, and let's see what happens. But Randak and several of the other lead geneticists were of the opinion of, no, we don't know if it could harm anybody. Well, much later on in today's world, we understand that it's only going to harm mutants. And since there technically weren't any mutants at the time, would have been perfectly fine. The problem is, we never would have had mutants. And that would be such a crappy comic book world without mutants. Am I right or am I wrong? So, moving on. Randak said, I am the king, I'm the monarch. I will not allow anything to be done or studied without first testing it on myself. And they're like, dude, you can't do that. He's like, no, I must make sure that everything is okay. So he steps in to the Terrigen chamber, and the Terrigen mists are released. And that's where I think it's like 6 pages, that's where that ends. That's it. But in the very next issue number 147 of Thor, we see a Sentry coming out. Now, the Sentry are these giant beasts. Believe me, I'm going to do that in a minute also. They're these giant monsters, mechanical monsters. They could be of various different sizes. This one is about half the size of a woolly mammoth. Excuse me. And it gets awoken from its slumber. Now, these giant hyper-intelligent robots were created by the Kree, and they're supposed to protect them and watch over their interests and their properties, their lands, everything they're interested in. They were protectors over that. And one Sentry was usually more than enough. Like, the Avengers by themselves have a very, very difficult time taking out a Sentry. So just to give you an idea of how tough these darn things are. And they had them way back in the prehistoric era of humanity. So this one Sentry was left to guard, basically, Adelan. I keep saying New Adelan because that's current day. So the original Adelan, the Forgotten City. So it gets woken up and is not sure why. And they're like, okay, it's still going to be like another generation, another millennia before the Kree return to investigate and see how their creations went, their experiments what these creatures, went. So let's go see what's going on. They go walking. The primitive humans are firing their arrows at them and like, oh, stay away. It might destroy us. So the Sentry sees this, I think it's Sentry number 467, if I remember correct. I didn't write that one down. And says, oh, wow, look at this giant city. These guys really have evolved really well. I'm impressed. So it gives you an idea of the AI there, the artificial intelligence. So it hovers and it flies over. As it's approaching, the Inhumans are like, hey, something's coming, something that's not of this earth. What's going on? And here's the really cool part about it. And this shows you Kirby's incredible, despite what he grew up in, all the nonsense that he grew up in. And go check my Jack Kirby Explained, I think Jack Kirby Profile. It's one of the earlier videos, 4-parter that I did. But very peaceful guy, very optimistic, I should say, guy. So he didn't have a problem shaking it up with somebody if necessary. Tonight's the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight, so I'm thinking about that stuff right now. But but he was a very cool guy, and he was very optimistic. And he's like, so he writes in that yes, he actually did all of the notes for this. He was very detailed. This was way more Jack Kirby than it was Stan Lee, and that's by Stan Lee's own admission. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I had very little to do with the Inhumans. I thought they were great, and I just went with it, and I did a little editing. This was almost all, and you could tell. This was almost all Stan Lee. Big mistake there. Almost all Jack Kirby. My bad. Anyway, so as this thing is approaching, they're like, wow, check it out, man. Cool. This is pretty interesting. Let's see what it wants. They open the doors, they open the gates, they drop their force fields and all that stuff because they don't see a foreign invader as something scary. Saying, hey, if they got to fight, they got to fight. But they look at it as this is a chance for us to learn about something. And that's something that I love about the mind of Jack Kirby. That most times you write, sci-fi or anything like that, the aliens are going to kill us. Jack Kirby's like, dude, wouldn't it be cool to meet aliens? So I love that. I absolutely love that about it. Anyway, the thing that woke him up was actually Randak going into the Terrigen Mists and the Terrigen Mists being discovered. All that stuff. That was the main thing. So Randak had just now come out and he fires a bolt at the Sentinel. Not to destroy it. It was just enough to say, I have really cool powers. Look what I can do. Bzz. And the Sentinel's like, boom. Wow. Hey, that's pretty cool. You guys have actually achieved what the Kree expected you to achieve. And you've achieved it far sooner than we expected you to. So listen, from now on, you guys are going to be called Inhumans. Okay? All of you who go through the Terrigen Mist and whatnot, you are all Inhumans because you're not regular humans anymore. You have succeeded in what the Kree expected sooner than we expected. Here's the deal, though. Get ready. Because when the Kree do return, if they return, they may return as enemies. You don't know that. So I'm here to give you that, forewarning. So this is why they've always been distrustful of Kree. And rightfully so, because the Kree have considered them mistakes. They never should have created these Kree. They were just experimenting, you know what I'm saying? And if you know the history of the Kree, they were actually horrible, terrible, and racist creatures. On top of that, just ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. The blue versus the white Kree and their war with the Skrulls. The Skrulls used to be peaceful until they met the Kree. Can you believe that? Genocide on races that exist, races, all of them that existed on Hala, their original planet. Terrible, terrible things. So, that being the case, that's the end of issue number 147 of Thor, or Marvel Tales number 123. Moving on in issue to 148 of Thor, or 124 of Marvel Tales, it starts off with an origin story for Black Bolt. Now, this is really cool. This is the first time that we actually get an origin, because we've always seen Black Bolt, and he's had that kind of Superman power, that whatever you need him to do, yeah, he can do. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Well, they kind of explained that a little bit more. He's basically just flying over top of his, of New Adelan at the time. And he's like, oh, check it out. Saying, yeah, this is cool. And then somebody goes and checks on a view screen. You just see the hand turning on the dial and says, let's check out the origin of our beloved leader, Black Bolt, Black Agar Boltagun. Yeah, I know. Let it go. So you see way back to when he was a baby, he could recreate his toys from seemingly nothing. They check out Black Bolt Explained in a minute to understand how he does this stuff, but he was able to see his toys, and even as an infant, before the first time that he ever really went into a temper tantrum and cried, just as an infant still, so mostly docile, he would see his toys and he could recreate them out of thin air using his powers. Okay, so molecular and energy control, manipulation and control. So very, very cool, And his father said, at one point, King Agon is his father. And he's also the lead geneticist in the Tower of Engineering, the Citadel of Engineering. There we go. And he'd said, wow, this is really cool. Eventually, he'll use this power less, and it'll start to, eventually fade away. But his other powers will increase, and certain powers he'll actually develop. One of the things that he was particularly pleased with was his lightning-fast reflexes and his danger sense, which is basically just a derivative of his cosmic awareness. Now, as danger sense, it's no different than spider sense, basically. King Agon actually pulled out a stun pistol from a holster and pointed it at Black Bolt. And I imagine he was actually ready to pull the trigger. And you'll get a sense of the fact that he actually was probably ready to pull it, even though it didn't say that at all. This is just my speculation. He's ready to pull the trigger on him, and the danger sense that young Black Bolt had, he's like, oh no, a threat. And he just, boom, blasts it with a concussive blast from his hand, a beam of energy from his hand, destroys the thing. So it's like, look at that, that's so awesome, man. He could have possibly known what this device was that I used, but his danger sense warned him that it was an inherent threat. Therefore, he reacted lightning quick and destroyed it. So, pretty impressive for a baby, right? They keep doing a couple little tests. Pretty soon, like, okay, listen, he's eventually going to get ticked off. Now, he's the lead geneticist. His wife is also a geneticist, but she's, and that's Rinda, Queen Rinda. She's also a geneticist, but she's in charge of the natal care section. And you can find more about what she can do back in Maximus Explained in a minute, and in Black Bolt Explained in a minute, what her her inhuman power was. So anyway, they decide they got to get out of here because he's about to start screaming. Well, he does scream, and it goes hypersonic that they can't even hear it. And it gets so bad, it actually collapses the entire building. And it starts shaking the streets and messing up buildings all around them. Mind you, this is not even your standard brick and mortar buildings with steel girders and things like that made for, earthquakes. This is an advanced, species, basically the Inhumans, so far advanced. I mean, they're so prepared for an earthquake or anything like that may happen, and yet their buildings are just ramrodded. They're just destroyed. Saying his voice runs roughshod over them, basically. So the building collapses. They're all able to escape, but they don't know where Black Bolt is. So they start, digging. Okay, right over here. It should be this way. Digging. Okay, the prenatal care area is right in here. They don't care about any of the other babies in the ward, any of the other people, anything. They don't care. They're just trying to get to the baby. Is it because they love their child and this is their progeny? This is the future of the kingdom? No. Guy actually says at one point, "Forward in the name of evolution." That's why I say I'm pretty sure he was willing to pull the trigger on young Black Bolt. King Agon was a dick. Like, who does that, man? That's your kid, dude. So, in the name of evolution, they decide to try and rescue him. Well, once they get in there, they realize that he'd made a force field around himself by solidifying the electrons all around him. So the building fell, and he's just sitting there with levitating his baby crib, talking about, yep, that's right, I'm chilling. And the building is falling on top of him, but there's a force bubble around him. He's cool, man. He's just maxing and relaxing. That's the end of that issue. On to Thor number 149, or Marvel Tales number 125. Black Bolt's, and they were reprinted a couple other ones also, but whatever. But Black Bolt's 19th birthday. On his 19th birthday, his father, through a view screen, says, "Yeah, sure, you can come out now." That's okay. He'd be dead in about 2 months' time. He'd be dead. Go check out Maximus Explained in a Minute for a pretty decent detail on that. Anyway, so he says, yeah, you can come out, but remember, you can't talk. And the slightest grunt, okay, anything, if you murmur in your sleep, we're all going to die. So you have to have complete control of yourself. When he comes out, his cousins show up. That's all the standard Inhuman royal family, and including his brother, Maximus. To give you an idea of the age difference here, Crystal, who is his wife Medusa, has a younger sister, Crystal. You can see both of them explained in a minute also. Crystal is 8 years old. So around 8 years old when Maximus's 19th birthday lands. So he's 11 years older than her. So how old is, what's the difference between age in Crystal and Medusa, and therefore the difference in age between Medusa and everybody else, including Black Bolt? I don't know. But there's an 11-year difference between Black Bolt and Crystal. So that's the only real time frame that we have in the comics of difference in age. How old are they now? Marvel sliding time scale? I don't know. And I did, I think my 4th podcast was about that. You can just look up Comic Book University, Marvel sliding time scale versus DC's Crises, or maybe I put reboot. Either way, it's one of my earlier podcasts. So anyway, let's see. Maximus is there, and he has a laser that he created, that he designed, that's just meant to really sting and hurt painfully. So imagine like a giant scorpion sting. Ah! And he's shooting it at Black Bolt, saying, scream, brother, scream. He's doing this to mess with him, but he's even shouting it out loud, saying, I'm the genius. Now, mind you, he wasn't crazy at this point, okay? Check out Maximus Explained in a Minute to find out how he went crazy, how he became Maximus the Mad. Now he was just Maximus the Genius, basically. And he was truly genius-level intelligence. He devised this little gun to shoot and hurt Maximus, because since Black Bolt is older than Maximus, even though he's more powerful also, Maximus is of the opinion of, I've been out here amongst the world, you've been in a freaking isolation chamber, all right? Medusa visited you once in a while. Check out Medusa Explained in a Minute for more on that. But for the most part, you haven't had interaction with anybody, dude. You're stuck inside here talking to people on freaking view screens, all right? You're not regal. You don't know how to act like a king. I do. I'm the future of the Inhumans, so I should lead. And all I have to do is make you scream, or either attack me. He didn't realize how powerful he was. He would have absolutely killed him if he would have attacked him, or just to go, ouch. That would have been enough. He would have destroyed all these different things and killed a lot of people, and Maximus, of course, would have been the leader. So that's his plan. Well, Maximus doesn't make any noise. He doesn't even try to subdue him. He's just trying to get away. He's flying, doing all these different things that he learned how to do. The other Inhumans subdue him, and all of them take a chance of putting a good beating on him. So, yeah, man. Maximus actually grabbed young 8-year-old Crystal like this, with the other hand, grabbed him and started shooting at Black Bolt. Wow, dude. Not even playing around. So they stopped him, and they realized that the title of this particular story was Silence or Death. I found that interesting because at first you're thinking, silence or death? Well, this clearly must mean if you're not quiet, we will kill you. That actually wasn't the deal at all. They were too impressed with his powers. He's the most powerful Inhuman ever. Ever. Even more powerful than the Nameless One. Yeah, I said it. So, boom. Now, this being the case, if he talks, there will be death for everyone else. So at the end, you get a good sense in just one panel, one Jack Kirby panel, that he will forever be the silent king, the lonely king, because he can never just talk with other people. And that's pretty cool. One of the things that makes me interested in seeing the Inhumans story in IMAX is that Anston Mount at one point, he says, I had to really learn body language, and on my own, saying for this, because at first when you think a thought and you want to communicate the thought, it goes from the brain to the mouth. But you have to completely bypass that. I can't lean in to talk to somebody when I'm not going to talk. So if I go like this to start talking, I've already betrayed the character, because he bypasses the mouth completely, and he thinks directly to his hands and his body to express his different motions, I'm here, and, move on, and let's go on with our task, and, things like that. So he had to learn how to be regal and how to stand the way that Black Bolt does. And that gives me a lot of hope that the movie could still be good. Look, the special effects are probably going to stink and all that stuff, with the exception of Lockjaw. But I'm hoping that the acting is going to be really good, guys. This is just in advance. But the final three stories in Thor's 150, 151, and 152, or Marvel Tales 126, 27, and 28, is a Triton story. Now, if this doesn't interest you, then it doesn't interest you. But it's basically Triton for the first time going out and exploring the world, because we don't know anything about Triton. Even, of all the Inhumans that have been explained and we learned about, we probably know nothing about Triton. It's actually Karnak's brother. That's an example. So the idea is that it's just, he goes out, and this is the story, if you've ever heard of it, where he sees a girl being attacked by a monster, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, and he attacks it. Turns out it's just an acting set. It's a movie set, and this was just an actor with a mask on. And then he gets captured, but then he escapes on his own, and he goes back home, because they're not going to be able to hold him with simple glass. What? He's Triton. He's really strong, So that's basically the story right there. It took 3 issues to do that, whatever, 3 parts of an issue. This story, all 7 of these for the most part, 6 through 2, 4, 5, 6, yep. All of these stories essentially happen around the issues number 50 and on for Spider-Man. That's how old the story is. You're going back to the first one. The Thor issue is actually November of 1966, if I'm remembering correctly. I should have written that down. Yes, I should have written that down. Wrote? No, wrong. So I should have written that down. I didn't anyway. I'm pretty sure it's November of 1966 for issue number 146 of Thor. So this was around the 50s of Spider-Man, the 40s issues of Avengers. X-Men number 38 happened at the same time. It came out the exact same week, I believe, as Thor number 146. I mean, issue number 38, dude, man, that was the original X-Men, the original 5 X-Men with Professor X. Holy crap, that is old, right? You're talking about Tales of Astonish and Tales of Suspense were still a thing. Think about that. So the original stories where the Hulk and Namor would have the conversations, they'd already kicked Ant-Man, Giant Man, Henry Pym out of the stories. The original stories where Iron Man and Captain America came into place, the original Iron Man stories and the rebirth of Captain America, right? Wow, that is old. That's how old this stuff is. So yeah, this is the Inhumans. They are very older, creation by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And for the most part, really, really good stuff. Just an opinion, but nonetheless. Guys, that's it for me. I'm just going to end this. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.